So his name is Endre Ady, and he's a famous Hungarian poet. He was born in 1920s, and he died when he was young. I think he was in his 40s, so he was sick. This is one of his... Oh, and he lived most of his life in Paris when he was writing poems. This is one of his most famous ones. It's called Párizsban járt az ősz. Párizsban tegnap beköszöntött az ősz, Szent Mihály útján suhant nesztelen. Kánikulában, halklombok alatt s találkozott velem. Ballagtam éppen a szajna felé, s égtek lelkemben kis rőzsadalok. Füstösek, furcsák, búsak, bíborak, arról, hogy meghalok. Elért az ősz, és súgott valamit, Szent Mihály útja beleremegett. Züm-züm röpködtek végig az úton, tréfás falevelek. Egy perc, a nyár, meg sem hőkölt belé. S Párizsból az ősz kacagva szaladt, itt járt, én tudom csupán, nyílgő lombok alatt. So, now in English. Or French first.
L'automne est passé par Paris. Hier, à Paris, l'automne s'est glissé sans bruit. Il descendait la rue offerte à Saint-Michel, et sous les arbres, qui dormaient dans la chaleur, il est venu vers moi. M'en allant à pas lents, j'approchais de la Seine. Dans mon âme chantait le feu, dans le bois mort, et la chanson était étrange, pourpre, grave, et parlait de ma mort. L'automne m'a rejoint, il a dit quelque chose, et le boulevard Saint-Michel a frissonné. Tout le long du chemin, des feuilles guillerettes s'amusaient à danser. Ce ne fut qu'un instant, l'été n'a pas bronché, et l'automne, en riant, quittait déjà Paris. Il est passé, je suis seule à le savoir, sous les arbres bleus.
So in English, Autumn passed through Paris by Endre Ady. Autumn slipped into Paris yesterday, came silently down Boulevard Saint-Michel. In sultry heat, passed both silent and still, and met me on its way. As I walked on to where the Seine flows by, little twig songs burned softly in my heart. Smoky, odd, sombre, purple songs, I thought they sighed that I shall die. Autumn drew a breeze and whispered to me, Boulevard Saint-Michel. That moment shivered, rustling the dusty, playful leaves quivered, wild force along the way. One moment, summer took no heed. Whereon laughing, autumn sped away from Paris. That it was here, I alone bear witness under the trees that moan.
We're lucky that Antonio is here this weekend and not in Spain, I guess, or somewhere else, reading a poem in.
Well, I'm going to read 3 poems in Gallego, or Galego. That is one of the languages of Spain. You may be familiar with the fact that Spain has 4 languages recognized. There is Spanish, Basque, that you heard before, and Catalan and Gallego. So I'm gonna read 3 very short poems by Rosalía de Castro, that is the mother of the Gallego literature. I mean, it's not that it was not written before, but I mean, because Gallego was the language of poetry during the Middle Ages. I mean, Alfonso X brought, the very Castilian king brought poetry in Gallego. But after the arrival to power by Isabel and Fernando, the Catholic monarchs, it was really not that cool to write in that language. So the thing is that when the Renaissance, the Romanticism took place, Rosalía was really the person who decided to take on her to start writing back in that language. So I'm gonna, I mean, it was not easy in a very machista society, not only Spain, Europe in general, but in a very machista society to be a woman writing. So the first poem addresses that situation, and it says: Daquelas que cantan as pombas e as flores, todos din que teñen arma de muller. Pois eu que non as canto, virxe da paloma, ai, de que a terei? Literally it says, well, of those women who sing of doves and flowers, everybody say that they have the soul of a woman. But since I don't sing them, oh virgin of the Paloma, tell me, what kind of woman am I? So that's the first one. A very also short one that is very, very interesting because of the situation with what you sing about, what you write about. Pensei que non hai nada novo embaixo do ceo, que antes outros pensaron as cousas que ora eu penso. E ben, para que escribo? E ben, porque así semos, relós que repetimos eternamente o mesmo. And I know well that there is nothing new under the sun, and that many others thought before the kind of things that now I say. So well, why do I write? So well, because that's the way we are. Because we are like clocks that repeat eternally the same. And the very, very last one, that is also a very, very short one, is about, Galicia is, to those of you Americans, can make a very clear comparison with, for example, with Ireland in a very specific situation. That is the fact that Gallegos, Galicia is one of the regions in Spain that really had more problems with hunger and where people were more pushed to really move and migrate to, in most of the cases, America. So that's a very, very similar situation for those of you with any kind of Irish background or knowledge about the Irish history. So this is a very kind of poem that is still, could resound to many, many of us, and says, este vaise, e aquel vaise, e todos se van. Galicia, si no me quedas, que te poidan traballar. Tes en cambio orfos e orfas, e campos de soledad, e nais que non teñen fillos, e fillos que non teñen pais. E tes corazóns que sufren longas ausencias mortás, viudas de vivos e mortos que ninguén consolará. And the translation is, this one is living, and also that one, and everyone lives. Galicia, you rest without men that will work for you. You have, in exchange, orphans, male and female, and fields of loneliness, and mothers that have no children, and children that have no fathers. And you have hearts that suffer long and dead absences, widows of living and dead, that no one will give console, or comfort. No one will comfort. Thank you.
So I will be reading a poem by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, not to be confused with Goethe, as I tell my students. So Goethe, this was written in the late 1700s, and the story behind it is that he was at a friend's house one night, and they saw a dark figure with a bundle in his arms riding past the house. And it turns out that the next morning, someone said that it was a farmer carrying his sick child to the doctor. And so that supposedly gave him the inspiration to write this poem. So the poem is titled Der Erlkönig, which is the Alder King or Elf King, kind of back to Norse mythology of the elves being demonic or evil creatures. So here it is in German. Der Erlkönig. Wer reitet so spät durch Nacht und Wind? Es ist der Vater mit seinem Kind. Er hat den Knaben wohl in den Arm. Er fasst ihn sicher, er hält ihn warm. Mein Sohn, was birgst du so bang dein Gesicht? Siehst, Vater, du den Erlkönig nicht? Den Erlkönig mit Kron und Schweif? Mein Sohn, es ist ein Nebelstreif. Du liebes Kind, komm, geh mit mir. Gar schöne Spiele spiel ich mit dir. Manch bunte Blumen sind an dem Strand. Meine Mutter hat manch gülden Gewand. Mein Vater, und hörest du nicht? was Ehrenkönig mir leise verspricht. Sei ruhig, bleibe ruhig, mein Kind, in dürren Blättern säuselt der Wind. Willst, feiner Knabe, du mit mir gehen? Meine Töchter sollen dich warten schön. Meine Töchter führen den nächtlichen Rhein und wiegen und tanzen und singen dich ein. Mein Vater, und siehst du nicht dort, Erlkönigs Tochter am düstern Ort? Mein Sohn, ich sehe es genau, es scheinen die alten Weiden zu grau. Ich liebe dich, mich reizt deine schöne Gestalt, und bist du nicht willig, so brauch ich Gewalt. Mein Vater, jetzt fasste mich an, Erlkönig hat mir ein Leids getan. Dem Vater grauset's, er reitet geschwind, er hält den Arm in das ächzende Kind, erreicht den Hof mit Mühe und Not, in seinen Armen das Kind war tot. The English adaptation, which is the translation. Who rides there so late through the night and drear? The father it is, with his infant so dear. He holdeth the boy tightly clasped in his arm. He holdeth him safely, he keepeth him warm. My son, wherefore seek'st thou thy face thus to hide? Look, father, the altar king is close by our side. Dost see not the altar king with crown and with tail? My son, 'tis the mist rising over the plain. O come, thou dear infant, O come thou with me, for many a game I will play there with thee. On my beach lovely flowers their blossoms unfold. My mother shall grace thee with garments of gold. My father, and dost thou not hear the words that the altar king now breathes in mine ear? Be calm, dearest child, thy fancy deceives. The wind is sighing through withering leaves. Wilt go then, dear infant, wilt go with me there? My daughter shall tend thee with sisterly care. My daughters by night on the dance floor you lead. They'll cradle and rock thee and sing thee to sleep. My father, and dost thou not see how the altar king is showing his daughters to me? My darling, I see it all right. 'Tis the aged grey willows deceiving thy sight. I love thee, I'm charmed by thy beauty, dear boy. And if thou art willing, then force I'll employ. My father, he seizes me fast, for sorely the altar king has hurt me at last. The father now gallops with terror half wild. He holds in his arms the shuddering child. He reaches his farmstead with toil and dread. The child in his arms lies motionless, dead.
Italian,
Latin,
Turkish, Chinese, Galician, Portuguese, and Spanish, Hungarian, more French. So we're going to have at the end an open mic. Those of you who want to read a poem from your iPhone, iPad, iPhone, BlackBerry, Strawberry, so you're welcome. So now I introduce Lorella Partenieri, who's going to read a poem in Italian, and her husband is going to translate it into English. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to read a teeny tiny piece from the Divina Commedia from Dante. You probably know, you kind of know the Divina Commedia. You know it's an imaginary trip that Dante took on the Holy Week of 1300 to the Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. And Dante, you probably know, is considered the father of the Italian language. It's like Chaucer for English. He's the first one who actually wrote in dialect instead of Latin, which is Italian. I'm going to read the Italian version, and since it's ancient Italian, my husband read the English version, ancient English, and I think everybody could understand, so let's hope so. I'm going to start. Canto primo. Nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita mi ritrovai per una selva oscura che alla dritta via era smarrita.
Canto 1. Midway along the journey of our life, I woke to find myself in some dark woods, for I had wandered off from the straight path.
Ah, quanto a dir qual era e cosa dura, questa selva selvaggia e aspra e forte, che nel pensier rinnova la paura.
How hard it is to tell what it was like. This wood of wilderness, savage and stubborn. The thought of it brings all my old fears.
Tanto è amara che poco più è la morte. Ma per trattare del ben ch'io vi trovai, dirò delle altre cose ch'io vo scorte.
A bitter place. Death could scarce be bitterer. But if I would show the good that came of it, I must talk about things other than the good.
Io non so ben ridir come io v'entrai, tanto era pieno di sonno a quel punto che la verace via abbandonai.
How I entered there, I cannot truly say. I had become so sleepy at the moment when I first strayed, leaving the path of truth.
Ma poi ch'io fui al piede d'un colle giunto, là dove terminava quella valle, che m'aveva di paura il cor compunto, guardai in alto e vidi le sue spalle, vestite già dei raggi del pineta, che mena dritto altrui per ogni calle.
But when I found myself at the foot of a hill, at the edge of the wood's beginning, down in the valley, where I first felt my heart plunge deep in fear, I raised my head and saw the hilltop, shawled in morning rays of light, sent from the planet that leads men straight ahead on every road.
Allor fu la paura un poco quieta, che nel lago del cor m'era durata, la notte ch'io passai con tanta pietà.
And then only did terror start subsiding in my heart's lake, which rose to heights of fear that night I spent in deepest desperation.
E come quei che, con lena affannata, uscito fuori dal pelago alla riva, si volge all'acqua perigliosa e guata, così l'animo mio, che ancor fuggiva, si volse al retro a rimirarlo passo, che non lasciò giammai persona viva.
Just as a swimmer, still with panting breath, now safe upon the shore, out of the deep, might turn for one last look at the dangerous waters, so I, although my mind was turned to flee, turned round to gaze once more upon the pass that never let a living soul escape.
And we will have a small taste of the third canto terzo, the door, the final door. Per me si va nella città dolente, per me si va nell'eterno dolore, per me si va tra la perduta gente.
Again, this is the inscription above the door to hell. Through me, the way into the doleful city. Through me, the way into eternal grief. Through me, the way among a race forsaken.
Giustizia mosse il mio alto fattore, fecemi la divina potestate, la somma sapienza e il primo amore.
Justice moved my heavenly constructor. Divine omnipotence created me, and highest wisdom joined with primal love.
Dinanzi a me non fur cose create, se non eterne, ed io eterno duro. Lasciate ogni speranza, voi che entrate.
Before me, nothing but eternal things were made, and I shall last eternally. Abandon hope forever, you who enter here.
We continue with Italian, the person that nobody knows here, Paola Malpezzi Prize.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to read two short poems by two Italian women poets who were, of course, the descendants of Dante, but who used their words in different ways. One is Ada Negri. Ada Negri was born in 1870 and died in 1945. She came from a very poor family, and she struggled to get her education. She became a teacher in a village in Lombardia, in the north part of Italy, and then, but she was able to publish a book of poems in 1892, and after that she was able to teach in Milano. And this collection of poems, especially, talks about the lives of the poor. She finally died in Milano. So I'm going to read her poem first, called Sfida, which means challenge. O grasso mondo di borghesi astuti, di calcoli nudrido e di polpette, mondo di milionari ben pasciuti e di bimbe civette, o mondo di clorotiche donnine che vanno a messa per guardar l'amante, o mondo d'adulteri e di rapine e di speranze infrante. E sei tu dunque, tu, mondo bugiardo, che vuoi celarmi il sol degli ideali? E sei tu dunque, tu, pigmeo godardo, che vuoi tarparmi l'ali? Tu strisci, io volo, tu sbadigli, io canto, tu menti e pungi e mordi, io ti disprezzo. Dell'estro arridi a me laureato incanto, tu l'affondi nel lezzo. O grasso mondo d'oche e di serpenti, mondo vigliacco, che tu sia dannato. Fiso lo sguardo negli astri fulgenti, io movo incontro al fato. Si ti bonda di luce, inerme e sola, movo. E tu ti ristai, scettico e gretto, più d'amor la fatidica parola mi prorompe dal petto. Va, grasso mondo, va per l'aer perso di prostitute e di denari in traccia. Io, con la frusta del bollente verso, ti sferzo in sulla faccia. The title is Challenge. O fat world of crafty bourgeois, fed with calculations and croquette, world of well-fattened millionaires and young coquettes, O world of tiny anemic women who go to mess to see their lovers, O world of the adulteries and plunder and hopes in terrors, you lying world, is it you then who wants to hide the sun of ideals from me? You pygmy coward, is it you then who wants to clip my wings? You crawl, I soar. You yawn, I sing. You lie and needle and bite, you I score. On me smiles the gold charm of imagining. You in filth sink down. O fat world of geese and snakes, dastardly world, may you be damned. I fix my sight in the brilliant stars. I go to meet my fate. Thirsting for light, unarmed and alone, I move. And the more you, skeptical and narrow-minded, desist, the more the prophetic words of love burst from my breast. Be off, fat world, be off through air darkling with prostitutes and hot on money's trace. I, with whip of seething verse, shall strike you in the face. The second poem is written by Marianna Fiore. She was born in 1948, which is a very important year for many reasons. And she is a living poet. She is a biologist and works in a clinic for women. Her poet in Italian is Hai aperto una porta, you open the door. Non so dire perché, mia compiuta, hai aperto una porta nell'aria della mia reclusione, né perché mi fai vivere questi giorni con gioia magnetica, con pienezza, lucida e reale. Forse perché hai labbra d'amaranto e dita di biancospino, perché hai pesche sulla pelle e miele nel sangue, o rose per capelli. So solo che questo aprile porta doni eccessivi di albe immense e notti insonni. Accumula terra, fuoco e acqua e regala a tigli ridondanti un profumo intenso. Vorrei che tu non ricevessi solo fiori da me, ma avessi per te piante con radici e frutta. Ti prego, arrestami negli aghi della tua fantasia, accoglimi nel campo di fuoco, nel rosso clamore di pace e panico, e colmami di bellezza e di furore. Io sono l'ape della tua dimensione. You open the door. I don't know how to say why, my complete friend. You have opened the door in the air of my seclusion, nor why you make me live these days with magnetic joy, with a fullness lucid and true. Perhaps because you have lips of amaranth and fingers of hawthorn, because you have peaches on your skin and honey in your blood, or roses for hair. I only know that this April brings excessive gifts of vast dawns and sleepless nights, heaps up earth, fire, and water, and bestows lindens overflowing with an intense perfume. I should like you to receive not only flowers from me, but have for your own plants with roots and fruit. I beg you make me stay in the needles of your fantasy. Receive me in the field of fire, in the red clamor of peace and panic, and fill me with beauty and frenzy. I am the bee of your dimension. Thank you.